Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Bella Smylie, joined with Ted Ings and one of our very good friends from Cox Automotive, Skyler Chadwick. Welcome, Skyler.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here today to talk with you guys and to the rest of the dealerships who are listening and our fans here at the Fix Ops Roundtable for sure.
Wonderful.
Skylar, great to have you back. I know we've got an exciting segment ahead. Bella, congratulations. You just graduated at Northwood University, and
Ted.
Bella's going to help ask the questions today, Skylar. And Bella, you're going on to the master's program shortly, right?
I am, yes. In August, I start a full 12-month accelerated Master's of Business Administration.
Well, very good.
Thank
And
you.
a special thanks to Cox Automotive for their great support of Northwood
Yes.
University and this passionate pipeline of people entering the industry. Skylar, it's always great to see. It's very refreshing and it provides a lot of energy to the entire industry.
Hey, I'm excited to be here today. I can't tell you, it's an exciting time right now for fixed ops and for dealerships. It's a year to remember of fixed ops, and it really is the year for dealerships to really focus on fixed ops. And I hope they're listening to us today because that is where they truly need to be working to fix and to really make it a seamless process for their customers for sure. So we're excited to talk about some things today for sure.
I know you've got some great information. I'm going to turn the show over to you, my friend. And Skylar Chadwick, the show is yours.
Yeah, awesome. So we just released our Cox Automotive consumer ownership study, and I'm so excited to talk about some of these amazing data points that we have talking about here today. And it's interesting to me. I don't think it's anything new to dealerships. We know that the age of a vehicle is growing on the road. I don't think there's nothing to hide there. But what's interesting to me is that when we think about consumers and holding onto their vehicles longer, what does that? How does that impact the dealership? And one of the things that I see about that is that 5 year mark, right? The length of ownership of a vehicle. And what I mean by that is like, how does that impact dealerships? How does that impact the way we actually source vehicles in the front end and work together as a service and front end of the business to make that happen? And so when I think about that, we're starting to lose some of those customers at that 5 year mark at the dealership. And it's interesting to me is when we look at some of the data points, we're actually losing customers at 1 to 2 years and taking those their service and their business to those general repair shops, which we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a minute. But it's not a hidden I don't think gem that we know that vehicle ownership is longer, but what does that mean for the dealership? And it really means that, hey, we really got to focus on making sure that we're taking care of the customer, that we're focusing on CSI. How do we retain that customer in our ecosystem and our dealership? And most importantly, we'll talk about some of those numbers about what that service customer is saying about their next vehicle purchase and who they're going to buy their next vehicle from for sure. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. So, what's interesting and what's kind of scary about this a little bit too is when we look at some of those ownership vehicles of age and so forth, is that we're starting to see those customers drop off at that 1 to 2 year mark at the dealerships. So dealerships, we're actually seeing them actually fall a little bit. So we've lost 12% of our customer base to the OEM dealerships across the country. And you can kind of see where it's kind of grown in that general repair quite a bit over the last couple of years. And you can see on the left-hand side here, you can see that 300,000 independent general repair shops that have come into the market now. So dealerships, that competition is getting more fierce, it's getting stronger, and you're really having to fight for that customer to make sure that you get them into the dealership. And we'll talk about some of the things that our key dealerships, our really high performers are doing to make sure that they retain those customers in those spectrums too as well. So good stuff here for sure.
Yeah, powerful stuff.
Yeah, and so what we want to do is we really want to focus on that decline. This decline of dealership shares of service is really amongst the contributing factor to as well. So as you can see, I keep on talking about that 1 to 2 year mark of customers coming back, and it's surprising to me. You wouldn't think that a customer that has a vehicle that's under warranty would start to think about taking their car to a general repair shop, and it's starting to make me think and wonder is like what's really going on and things like that. And we'll talk more about like, hey, how do we set up our scheduler correctly, right? What are the things that the consumers are looking at? And there's a buzzword out there that's been out there for a long time, and it's AI. And we as dealerships have got to start thinking, our customers are now starting to use AI. And if you think about myself, I could go to any of my family members or yourselves, and I guarantee you, we have some form of chat GPT or Claude on our phones. Your customers are doing the research on you dealerships, and it's starting to accumulate. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure we protect ourselves as a dealership so we don't lose those customers at that time frame. So yeah, and this is a big number. This one kind of is shocking to me a little bit. And so when we start thinking about our customers, when a customer buys a vehicle, we have to start thinking about that is a 12,000 plus customer cost that they're planning on in service in their dealership of life expectancy of a vehicle. So if you think about that, we got to start attaching that hard number to our customers. So when we sell a vehicle to a customer, a new vehicle to a customer, we're telling you at Cox Automotive, our study is showing that there is a hard number of 12,000 that customer is planning on spending on the life of that vehicle of ownership. And so that 1 to 2 year mark falling off and going to a general repair, that is going to start to hit that into that checkbook at the end of the day. And we're going to really start to see that impact. And so it's so important that we start looking at the full picture, not just looking at that 1 to 2 year. We got to start looking at the full customer's journey of their servicing their vehicle at the dealership for sure. So
That's a huge number, and this is a very important slide, Skyler. I didn't realize that, but this really is glaring.
yeah, it is glaring here. And, we're not the Tully Williams, our other friend here, the Fixed Ops Roundtable, but, that's probably some of those higher dealerships. But as an average, you really got to start thinking about, wow, every customer we sell a new vehicle to, they're planning on spending $12,000 or plus more throughout their life of their service in their dealership. And that's money into our pockets. So we got to make sure we really focus on the customer experience for sure and retain that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yes, and this is an interesting conversation here. When do our customers actually start thinking to turn the table on their vehicle? When do I start thinking about maybe do I now start looking at options of trading in that car? What is that benchmark that customers now, when you make a recommendation to them and their vehicle and that cost of that recommendation is 3,000 and above, that's when that customer is starting to really start to think about, do I put that into my service? Do I put that back into my car? Or do I start looking at options to trade that in? And one of the things I started thinking about, we got to do a lot more work when it comes from the front end to the back end of the dealership and working together to make sure, because guess what? Here at Cox Automotive, we could tell you if they've been on Auto Trader. We could tell you if that customer's been looking at specific vehicles. Are they in the buying mood, right? Have they been on KBB? Have they been looking on those specific things? And we can help dealerships really kind of determine, is that customer in the buying mode? And then helping our service departments understand is that, hey, when a customer is looking at $3,000 more in service, we got to start thinking about how we present those recommendations to them to make sure that we can help them retain them in the customer's situation. But then you also see here that 33% number there, highly recommended of getting a trade-in valuation on their car. 33% of consumers want a trade-in value on their car when they come in for service. So what does that tell me? That basically 1/3 of our customers are telling me, what is my car value today? How do I make that decision, right? Do I put that $3,000 into my car if the service plan gets up to that much? And so we've got to do a much better job as a dealership to making sure that our customers understand the value of their car. Is it time to trade it in, right? What's the value of that car 3 months from now? So we are showing that data, and it's really interesting to me that only that 33% of our consumers want that value on their car. And it's astonishing to me for sure.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. Dealership fixed ops revenue growth, right? I think all of us can sit there and say, right, dealership growth profitability is up, but dealership shares are gone down. And so even though that our growth in dollars have grown up, which we all know can contribute that to parts and labor increases and those types of things, but the dealership shares have continued to decline since 2018. So even though that our profitability is going up and the gross profitability of a service and fixed operations platform in our dealership shares are going down. And so we got to make sure that we're really focused on that customer experience and really focus on making sure that that customer comes back to our dealership. And don't make it hard on them. We got to find ways to make it easy on them to get back to the dealership.
This is powerful stuff, Skyler. Great stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. Price perception. This has been an amazing conversation over the last couple of years that I've had. Now, I know that when you look at these numbers, average customer spend per RO, you look at, hey, we're losing business to these general repairs, but is it really benefiting the consumer? The answer is no. They're not. It's not benefiting the consumer because the average spend of that customer is actually higher at general repair than the actual dealership. So that means that dealerships are doing a great job in pricing their services correctly. What we're doing a not so good job is making it easier on our customers to get back into the dealership, right? I think of two things that in a service scheduler, there's two things that kind of either deflect me as a consumer if I'm going to bring my car in for service at the dealership. One of them is pricing. The other one on top of that is timing, right? If a customer has had their service light on their vehicle for the last week and they finally get to the time to schedule that appointment at the dealership, and you tell them and it's 2 weeks out, that customer doesn't have time to think about that. And the other factor that before they even get to that time factor, they see the pricing of that. Are we displaying pricing of those services accurately to our customers? I can tell you right now, I had to schedule my truck to a couple large dealerships in this area that are OEM dealerships, and I have to tell you, I went to all three of them. Not one of those three could tell me what was going to cost me to get an oil change on my truck. And to me, that can't happen, right? We've got to change that philosophy. So, you dealerships, you have the advantage right now. Our data is showing that you have the advantage here to making sure that you can regain that customer's experience, right? Show them why the value is so important, right? And if you think about those $275 and $261, what's the advantage of going between a general repair shop and a OEM dealership to have your vehicle serviced? I guarantee you, you're not getting pictures, you're not getting videos of those recommendations. You're not getting a OEM certified technician to look at your vehicle to tell you what's wrong with it. So the other important thing is I want to talk about here, that 55% number. 55% of consumers that say they have a quality customer experience at their dealership, they're 55% more likely to buy their next vehicle at your dealership. So put that factor into there. You got winning numbers here. Customers are willing to spend $12,000 or more in service over the life of their actual ownership of that vehicle. The other one, you're pricing your much better competitive set. And number three, guess what? General repair shops, they're not buying cars. Dealerships buy cars. So that's the experience that we really got to focus on. And that 55% is that number where I think about today is, how do we bring the actual service and parts and also the front of the business closer together, because it's a team effort to make sure that we keep that customer in our ecosystem.
Yeah, Skylar, you kind of touched on that team effort, and this slide actually brought up a question that I have. If service kind of becomes that main growth driver, how should the dealerships rebalance the focus between variable and the fixed operations?
It's a team effort, and I will tell you, the front end should be looking at every single customer that's coming through the service lane. And here's why. Because I can't think of a better car to buy that has a higher CR value than the auctions, right? If you know that customer has been servicing your vehicle at your dealership, that's a car you want because you know the history of that vehicle. And so at the front of the business, they should be looking at every service appointment. Does it meet our business strategy? Does that meet our strategy? Is this a car that we need? And the other question is that customer in a buying mode? And the other question is, when they came through service, is there high expenses, right? Are there things that the consumers now starting to think about trading that vehicle in? Do we have a vehicle that matches that customer's needs? So when I think about that, when you ask that question, Bella, that is where dealerships, we're going to have to work harder nowadays, but we got to work smarter with the tools that we have, the software tools we have, that those datas are now coming together to connect that story to make that a better experience for sure. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great point, Skyler. Very strong.
Yeah. All right, talking about high performance dealerships, right? What are we seeing in high performance dealerships? What are they doing? One, the customer goes into the scheduling tool, they see pricing of their services that they're looking for. Don't hide pricing. Trust me, your customers are doing AI. They're going to Kelly Blue Book and looking at service and repair costs. They're looking everywhere, right? They're asking ChatGPT, where's the best place to get an oil service, right? And a lot of that data is getting posted out there with those service campaigns and so forth. You're fighting against your competition, which is your general repair shops today. So that's my biggest key right there. The other one is making sure that we are opening up white space. I don't think we're doing a great job in managing white space. And what I mean by white space is all the unused opportunity we
Hmm.
have to bring customers in. You know, I think about Ed Roberts. He's done a great job in creating white space in his group, and the reason is because he's actually able to take his mobile servicing business and actually allowing that business to take care of itself outside of that. So that way, when the customers bring their car to the dealership, we have a full shop capacity of white space to really open that up. And so I think he's a prime example here for dealerships to follow in the actual industry. When we talk about white space, we've got to make sure that we're opening it up, right? Making sure that our parts quotes are being done in a timely manner. I looked at the data the other day. You know, I was seeing some averages of parts departments taking 18 to 20 minutes to do a parts quote. That's taking way too long, right? Especially if you have a customer in the waiting lounge and then it's taking another 10 to 15 minutes. Think about that. That's over 30 minutes of wasted time that our dealerships are actually, our customers are waiting for a response on their vehicle if there is recommendations. So we've got to speed that up. And I think that will contribute to that white space that I'm talking about, of that unused opportunity to capitalize on those specific things too. I think the other thing that our other high performing dealerships are doing, they're changing the focal point of when the best time to bring their cars in. So with X time schedule, right? It's one of our tool capacities that we have here at Cox Automotive is that having your campaigns tied, right? Offer special discounts for customers in the afternoon, right? Offer 5 to 10% off of their oil change if you bring it in between the hours of 1 and 3. Change the focal point of the prime time to get things done in the morning time, right? Everybody wants to bring their car in the morning. Well, why? Because they think they're going to get it done and they're going to be able to get out of the dealership and get on with the rest of the life. But if we can start changing that focal point, then guess what? We have hungry techs that are actually working on their bench every morning, and then we have hungry techs that are not sitting on their bench in the afternoon. So that is the key factor there, right? Making sure that we emphasize and we're using things that really matter most. And so when I think about high performers, it's really my biggest point is right now is we got to do a better job of managing that white space and really opening that white space so that we don't have customers who would then deflect to these general repair shops and causing a lot of grief for the dealerships. Because right, that's every customer we lose, that's $12,000, right, of opportunity there for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and then if you look at this high performance, look at that. The technology improves, right? I talk about it all the time. Video and pictures sell, right? That is the biggest factor when we think about video and pictures. And Belle, you talked about the front end and the back end working with each other. Guess what? What if I were to tell you if I was to buy that car and my technician's taking pictures and videos of that vehicle, the health check of that vehicle, we know what it is. How does that help us put a better ACV value on that car, right? Helping dealerships protect their gross profitability. So when it comes back to the front end and back end working with each other, technology is a huge part of the business. So dealerships, if you're not using pictures and videos, you better jump on because guess what? You're 50% more likely to sell that service if you are actually taking pictures and videos and sharing that with a customer for sure. So love it.
Tully would be proud, Skyler.
Oh, I know he'd be proud. The man's still trying to shoot for that 100%, but we'll see if he ever makes it there in his lifetime. So, but as you can see here, right, high performing dealerships, this is really about productivity metrics and things like that. We really want to make sure that as dealerships understand is that offering finance, right, options for service is a huge one. I love that. Also, photos and videos is the highest one you can see here too as well. Making sure that we put it in our digital platform. we got to start putting the decision in customers' hands. All right. I see too often where dealerships, technicians, I mean, not technicians, but advisors actually texting customers cost and what it's going to cost and what it is. You got to get up with the times. You got to put the decision in the customer's hand, right? Get it electronically. Speed that up. It's going to create more white space for you for sure. So,
Skyler, great information as always.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know you kind of touched on like using and capitalizing on the use of technology and the teamwork between the front and the back end, but what do you think is the biggest missed opportunity that dealerships currently have in service?
I think the biggest missed opportunity for service departments today is truly how do we um, how do we keep that customer ecosystem? And a lot of that due is to communication. We've got to do a better job of communicating with the customer, and that goes back to that 33% number of how many customers want an appraised value on their car when they bring it in for service. That is a missed opportunity to keeping that customer in communicated, right? I mean, if you told me today my truck was valued at this, but guess what? In 3 months, just based off of what our metrics are and predictions, it could be valued at this, and I get a high service bill and that I can't afford, but it might be more likely for me to be able to trade that vehicle in. We've got to do a much better job of communicating to the consumer. We've got to build that trust because that trust has been lost over many years, and you can see it, right? Trust sometimes doesn't always carry us over. When we're starting to lose customers at the year 1 and 2 years of ownership of a vehicle, we've got to really focus on that trust and transparency, and that really has got to come back to communication, right? Into that too as well. And we got to market to our customers, right? We've got to look at it smart. Bella, I know you're going into data science and so forth, but I would tell you guys this is like too many dealerships have missed opportunities that we're not reading the data correctly. We're not seeing what the data story is telling us, and I think that's a missed opportunity for sure. So.
I think your insights on that is very, very valuable, but also emphasizes that we need to keep looking at those numbers and make sure that we're looking at the numbers correctly and using them to their fullest capacity.
Yeah, for sure.
Well said. The 2026 Cox Automotive Fixed Operations and Ownership Study is on the web. I understand, Skylar, we can go to coxautoinc.com/ownership hyphen study and learn more about it. And this is breaking stuff, breaking news. And Skylar, as always, thank you for delivering the goods here at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. Fascinating information and just so relevant for where we are right now.
Yeah, I truly will say this. This is the year for fixed ops. Everybody thought it was 2025. 2026 is the year for fixed ops. And when we think about profitability in a dealership, as we start to see those margins start to close down on new vehicles and sales and things like that, we've really got to start looking at what the cash cow is. I hate to call it a cash cow, but in a dealership, the fixed ops is the cash cow, and it's really helping dealerships really survive for sure.
Great. Bella Smylie from Northwood University, thank you so much for
Thank
helping to
you.
moderate this segment. Great questions. And Skyler Chadwick, Director of Product Consulting at Cox Automotive, thank you for all you do for the industry. And great information, again, available, everybody. Visit Cox Automotive on the web. You see the URL scrolling down the bottom. You can also reach out to Skyler there. He's very active on social media. I see his email scrolling as well if you have any questions. And Skyler, thanks for all you do for the industry.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for having me today. Appreciate it.
Everybody, Skyler Chadwick with Cox Automotive here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.